the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the three of my cohorts in crime at ITTT. And we are going to start making a bigger splash. This is bigger than the one before it, and we expect it to grow by leaps and bounds. First, I'd like to introduce you to Susie O'Gara. Where are you, Susie? And she is an advisor to this group, and that's what she wants to be known by. She's incognito. Not really. Susie, are you waving or doing something wonderful?
She's waving.
She's waving. Okay. Next is Heidi Hirsch. And here is what she'd like you to know about her. She's one of our showcase advisors, and she's the director of project development with Reveal Studios. And for those of you who were on when she announced that, you already know that. And finally, I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, the fabulous, indefatigable, I've got to think of other things, Roberta Perry. And she's the president of Roberta Perry and Associates. She is a business development catalyst. And why? For those of you who know her, this is no surprise. She makes things happen. She's the past president of TEA, which she suckered me into doing the PR, and the Nightclub and Bar Association, which occurred before we knew each other. She's recently moderated 2 panels for the Esports Conference, CEC, and is moderating the C-Suite, Sea of Change for Global Gaming Women. Now I get to mute and Roberta gets to talk.
All right. Thank you, Norma Lynn.
Yeah.
It is my pleasure today to be the co-host of this amazing showcase. As all of you should know about Norma Lynn, she is, and she's very humble, by the way. She's the owner of Cutler Enterprises, an innovative branding company. And I know because I've worked with her for 30 plus years, and she is awesome when it comes to branding. As Norma Lynn mentioned, we are recording today's showcase. So if you do not want to be recorded, you don't want us to see your picture, please go ahead and shut off your camera. The showcase program that we have for you today is going to consist of 15 to 20 minute presentation by our guest speaker. And then I'm going to ask him some interesting questions that we have developed specifically for Corey in this particular presentation. If any of you have questions, feel free to put your question into the chat, and I will pull those down as we come to them after the presentation. Now, why are we here? In today's job market, whether one is looking for a job, as some of us mentioned, or we're looking to change jobs, we want to find ways to make ourselves and our expertise more visible, especially with all the noise out there on social media. Plus, we want to get noticed without appearing to be too self-aggrandizing. LinkedIn is a valuable tool for people to search for new opportunities. As you know, though, LinkedIn can be both exciting because we get to meet all kinds of new people, but can also be very frustrating. Our speaker today is going to guide us through that frustration. I met Corey about 2 years ago now at a gaming conference in Las Vegas and immediately knew he was of like mind to everything I was doing. And then I had the opportunity to introduce him to clients as well as to introduce him to my co-host today, our co-host, and he just is awesome. He has an amazing gift of marketing data. He is marketing data. He is an expert in the area of marketing data with extensive experience building strategies, especially around social media platforms. He's going to share with us his expertise for using LinkedIn so that we can all optimize our opportunities that are out there. I'll be back in about 20 minutes, but I'm going to be paying attention to every word that Corey talks about. So Corey, take it away.
Will do. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate it. I know that taking time out of your lunch to listen to somebody on screen blab on about LinkedIn isn't necessarily the first thing on everybody's wish list, but I'm glad that you're all here, and I hope that we can get a whole bunch of value out of today's presentation. Now, just really quick, want to make sure everybody's able to see what I have up here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Don't
Yes.
want to leave anybody in the dark by missing a couple of slides. So obviously what are we going to be talking about today? The idea today is to really look into how we can harness the power of LinkedIn. What can we do in order to leverage its value, identify opportunity, find a job, build our company's presence? It was great to listen to everybody talk about what they were hoping to get out of today's presentation. I'm really hoping that through the next 20 minutes or so, I'm able to tackle a bunch of those everything on that checklist. So let's go ahead and dive right in. First, I want to talk a little bit about the value of LinkedIn. Now, I know, there's a lot that you could say about the size of the network, a lot you could say about the amount of people who are engaging on there. That's all sort of superficial data. What I really want to look at specifically is how LinkedIn is being used for one of its core purposes, which is recruiting and finding jobs. So first, the study that was done, it was last year, the study was conducted, found that 90% of recruiters are currently using LinkedIn to look for candidates. Now, that's a significantly higher number than it was even 2 years prior. It was about 78%, and that number has continued to rise. So really, it's become, in effect, one of the most actively used recruitment tools, and that's going even above, Indeed and Monster. While those are good tools, this provides a platform, which we'll see today, which allows you to actually showcase your personality, showcase more about yourself than simply posting a resume. And that's something we're going to be getting into. There's also a huge number of US-based companies, even more companies obviously around the world, but specifically US-based companies that are using LinkedIn for recruiting. Now, those companies span a whole host of industries, one of the very large ones, is entertainment. You have ranging from fashion, entertainment. You have some companies that are posting executive level positions. You have companies that are posting entry level. So there's a very broad range of positions that are being marketed and that are being used for recruitment purposes through the use of LinkedIn. And in the proof is in the pudding, as they say, 20 million active job listings on LinkedIn right now. Obviously, it'd be nice if all of those were in entertainment. It'd be nice if all of those positions were positions that we're looking for. But with 20 million open positions, there are a lot that focus in on our industry, and there are a lot that focus in on tangential industries. And that's something I also want to talk a little bit about, is looking at the question of, how do you apply for a job when an industry has actually shrunk? What do you do with regards to content and job hunting? We'll talk about that too. We'll also you take a look that there has been a steady increase in the actual engagement from recruiters on LinkedIn. Same with the 90% of recruiters that are currently using it, how that's jumped up in the last 2 years. Same goes with actual direct candidate engagement. So it's not just a place where people post jobs, post resumes, and look to actually hire. There's actually engagement, and the job process continues, or the job hunting process continues beyond that first step. Now, obviously, that first step is going to include something pretty important, which is your profile. I heard a couple of people today who mentioned that they have LinkedIn. They've never used it. They're not entirely sure what to do with it. Believe it or not, you fall into the majority. LinkedIn has for a very long time been viewed as a glorified resume placeholder. A lot of people weren't using it right. I know that not long ago, I got the Nigerian prince scam in a LinkedIn InMail. So obviously, LinkedIn has become a place where you could start seeing a lot of spam. Microsoft's done a pretty good job of cleaning it up. And in doing so, they've really focused in on the profile and the content. So I want to talk a bit about how we can optimize that content on the network. Simple do's and don'ts. Make it nice and easy for everybody. So highlight relevant work experience, projects with links, video, obviously related to what you can share. I know this is an industry like a lot of, like some very public-facing industries. This is an industry that lives and dies by the NDA. There is a lot that we can't necessarily share as much as we'd like to, but there are creative ways, I'll talk a little bit about those too, where you can actually share your experience, share your knowledge, and showcase some of your work experience. Ideally, show, don't tell. There are spaces on your profile where you can share video. There are places where you could share photos. There are places where you can actually load up projects. We'll talk a bit about that. But share whatever you can that's relevant to your work experience and to your expertise in a field. Next, you want to be creating content specifically for LinkedIn that highlights that expertise in those lessons. So in addition to optimizing your profile, you want to start taking advantage of all the content creation tools that exist directly on the network. Now, LinkedIn just recently announced that they're going to be offering the capability to use live video, similar to Instagram Live and Facebook Live. The idea, as far as I can tell and from the people I've spoken to, is that's really a call to get younger people to start using the network. I see that taking a little bit of time to balance out. If you've spent any time with some of the other noise that's out there with live video, you know that it's taken a little bit of time to find a nice middle ground. But there are still plenty of other options related to LinkedIn, like direct posting on LinkedIn for content development. You could effectively leverage LinkedIn to build your personal brand through the blog post capabilities, the article post capabilities that are there. You can post videos there. So really leveraging that content to build up your presence has a huge impact and a ripple effect when it comes to job hunting or promoting your company if you're looking for business development. You'll also want to actually take advantage of asking people for your help. If you've worked in this industry for long enough, if you've had a career for long enough, you've built relationships with people, you've reached out to them, you've helped them in cases where they've asked for it. In all likelihood, I'm assuming, I don't know all of you, so maybe some of you haven't helped anybody, but for those of you who have helped somebody, you have built up these sort of favors. And I don't mean that in a do me a favor, but really reaching out to your network, asking for help is not anything that you should feel ashamed to do or something that you should be hesitant to do. People like to help people. The only problem is that not enough people ask for the help they need. You should be asking for the endorsements, you should be asking for those recommendations, and you should be looking to offer those to people as well if you've worked with them and you feel as though you have something to offer on their profiles. Endorsements and recommendations are hugely valuable because they speak both to your network, to your experience, and they add a personal touch from people who actually know you instead of just talking about yourself the entire time. You also want to, and I know this sounds silly, and it seems almost silly to have to mention it, but the very trivial idea of having to fill out your about section is something that so many people overlook. The about section is effectively the new version of your digital cover letter. The more you start to sift through some of the jobs and some of the business development opportunities that are out there, the more you start to notice that fewer and fewer are asking for cover letters, because the idea for a lot of recruiters and for a lot of companies is that by looking at your about section, if you're applying, they can really get to know who you are by looking at your profile, looking at your endorsements, looking at that about section where you tell people about yourself. And not enough people are actually filling that out. People tend to put in some content that sounds a little bit robotic, it sounds a little archaic or almost too professional, and I'll mention that in a second. I know it's counterintuitive, but we'll get to that. But really, filling out that about section, adding a splash of personality to it is going to give people a sense of who you are outside of just that professional side. So definitely fill out that section. Now, what don't you do? Well, a common mistake that you'll see people make is they take the opportunity for, LinkedIn being more than just that standard single page format for a resume. People fill out every single thing they've ever done since they were old enough to get into the workforce. If you served ice cream on the boardwalk when you were 14 years old living in New Jersey, that's awesome. Doesn't necessarily reflect on your project management skills today. Now, unless those project management skills were at Baskin-Robbins, which is not saying it doesn't happen, you're in all likelihood not going to need to tell people about the part-time summer work you had 30-some years ago. So focus in on the relevant experience, focus in on the work that has led you to develop yourself professionally, and take away some of the stuff that is a little extraneous or not really adding much value there. Another big mistake that people make is they go out and connect with absolutely every single person that they possibly can. There was a time, I mentioned before, that not long ago, before Microsoft took over LinkedIn, I received one of those Nigerian prince email scams on the network, and that's exactly what it was. It was one of these, I have a fortune of 40 million send me your bank information, etc. That goes hand in hand with that same era of people connecting with anybody and everybody they possibly can. You had people who would happily tout that they had 25,000 LinkedIn connections. Now that is insane. I mean, I don't know that I've come across 25,000 people personally in my life, and to have 25,000 connected doesn't really seem like much of a brag, so much as it is just somebody wasting time on the network. So the key is, well, you want to build as big and valuable a network as possible. You don't want to just connect with absolutely anyone that you come across thinking that it adds something to your network. You want to be more selective, and you want to actually make the network work for you. You also don't want to post projects or work experience without going into some detail about what you learned and what sorts of expertise was garnered from that experience. Now, there are two sections on the network. There is your work experience section, and there are projects. Now, projects can be outside projects that you might have worked on. Maybe you and a group of friends put together a small independent project that didn't relate to a job that you had. Maybe you and a few peers worked on some sort of research initiative that that operated outside of your job. Those are the kinds of projects where you want to be tagging people, you want to be connecting with them so that you can share that project, but you want to go into some detail. Again, you don't want to obviously put in anything that violates privacy or NDAs. You want to check with everything, make sure that everything's above board, but you also don't want to simply put, I worked at company X from this year to this year, and then add nothing. You know, obviously you could put in some information about the company, but what you really want to get into is what you learned, what your responsibilities were, lessons that you learned from those responsibilities and those tasks. So really getting into some of the details there, because again, that's what showcases you and what makes you an expert. And this is where I mentioned before, while you do want to have some of the more professional sounding content up there, you want to get some personality into it. I mean, this is an industry with some of the most personable people I've ever met in my entire life, and we should be showcasing that personality on LinkedIn. So don't necessarily just write content that comes off as having written it and reviewed it 400 times, terrified of any sort of issues. You want to let yourself shine through in that content. Obviously, you don't want to go a little too overboard, but when you look at some of the biggest influencers that are out there, when you look at some of the most popular accounts that are out there in terms of follower counts and engagement, you start to see that there's a lot of personality, even though they're professional accounts. You want to try and do the same with the stuff that you're sharing. So, what can you do to stand out? If that wasn't enough, here are a couple of things you could do. Write. I mentioned before that there is an opportunity for a tremendous amount of content to be created on LinkedIn. You need to start writing, even if it is just writing about the lessons you've learned, writing about your industry, writing about news and updates and your opinions about it. It's a good practice. It's effective both for your own personal brand and for any company that you might work with where this is a task. But start to write where you can actually go beyond just a work experience and talk about your professional experience and your expertise in a unique way. You also want to start engaging. One of the big problems that you see when it comes to LinkedIn is, especially when it comes to job hunt, you see people who are creating their profiles, they're putting up all their information, they're putting up their experience, and then they sit there silent. It's all me, me, me. Here's what I wrote. Here's what I posted. If you're going to use the network, and the thing you need to remember is that for as much as this is a professional network, this is a social network. It is the professional social network. If you're not going to be social, you're simply only using it for half of its value. Your connections aren't really going to be part of your network. They're simply going to be people that you pushed a button to connect with. Your content is really not going to get much elevation, seeing as how you haven't been part of the network, and you're really not going to be able to develop relationships that can ultimately lead to new business or a new position. So engage with people, be a part of the network, and see it grow that way, much more organically. connect with people. You know, as much as you don't want to go overboard with it, you do want to connect. So while you're engaging with this network, while you want to be connecting with them, find the people who have worked in your industry. Find people who have worked for a job at companies that you've worked for. Find people who are working at companies that you may like to work for. See if there's common ground. Connect with them. Talk to them, and again, build up that professional network. At that same time, if you're connecting with somebody, ensure that there's a personalization to it. I mentioned scam emails. As far as I'm concerned nowadays, the email that comes in from someone saying, so-and-so would like to connect with you, and then the message is, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. As far as I'm concerned, that today is the new age version of ultra spam. That is, to me, somebody hitting connect and moving on to the next person, hitting connect, et cetera, et cetera. Personalize the message, show somebody that there's value in building a relationship, tell them that you saw that they did X and you thought that they may be interested in connecting to talk more about your experiences, and really start to form those relationships. Again, it's a social network as much as it's a professional network. And highlight your work, this is an industry of show, don't tell. Take advantage of the opportunity to show on your resume. It's rare that you get a chance to have video. It's rare that you get a chance to have images and links and project highlights on a resume, and you actually can do that here, and too many of those sections are left blank, leaving a huge opportunity missing when it comes to, again, finding a job or business development. Following those steps really is going to be the difference between that shameless self-promotion of me, and actually building a personal brand, building relationships, and a network that lasts a much longer time. So, lastly, I want to take a look at a couple of quick snapshot steps before we jump into questions that you could take right now, just something easily digestible that you can walk away with. Couple of tips. I mentioned share content. I know that, and especially when you're looking for a job, especially when you are out of work and looking for the next opportunity, or if you're working and you're hunting down clients, I know the mentality and framework is, I just need to find something, I just need to look for that. But the practice of sharing content, writing things, has such tremendous lasting potential benefits that it's something you should be doing whenever you get the opportunity. It's also a great practice just to become more comfortable in the digital writing landscape, which is growing and growing and growing. You'll want to customize those outreach messages. Again, sending something where it simply looks like you're connecting with every single person you come across, it's not something that people are particularly fond of, and it doesn't stand to have much benefit. So really take the time to customize the outreach like you would if you were sending a letter. Reach out to the people in your network and build that reputation. Again, you need to be asking for the help. The help isn't going to come knocking on your door. You want to take advantage of the kindness of others. You want to give kindness to others and ask for people to help you build that reputation and build your presence on this network. At the same time, you want to be engaging with employers. Follow the companies you're interested in working with. Follow the people who are working there. Connect with them if there's an opportunity to connect with them, and build a rapport. Relationships, and I mean now more than ever, but even before all of the lockdowns and everything has been taking place, there was huge value in building a relationship with someone while you were looking online, while you were looking to potentially work there. I mean, there's the degree of personal connection that goes into any hire, as I'm sure a lot of you know, and there is a way to leverage that with a professional network too. Again, it's social as much as it's professional. And follow up. Don't be afraid to reach back out. You don't necessarily, obviously, you don't want to pester people and annoy them into not giving you a job or giving you some work, but you do want to follow up. Don't be afraid to connect and find out what's going on. This is a place where you could feel a little bit more comfortable to actually have a conversation. It's not as laid back as, say, a Facebook, but it's not as rigid as an email. So you can actually have conversations and get a pretty comfortable flow going. And if you're following these 5 things, then it's both a benefit to achieving those short-term goals of finding that job, building your business, or and it's also got some very significant long-term impacts in terms of your professional presence, the value of that presence, and the actual value that can be pulled out in order to build your brand, build your company. With that, I know there's quite a bit of information there. Believe me, if I was handed 3 hours today, we could have sat here for 3 hours, but I figured do you all a favor and try and avoid that. So I'll pass it back to Roberta, but thank you all. Hope that was helpful. I guess we can jump into some questions now, huh, Roberta?
Yes, we are, Corey. Thank you so much. I'm applauding in both ways. Thank you, thank you. Especially, Corey, thank you for reminding me and maybe some of the other people on our Zoom audience that LinkedIn is a professional social network. I think sometimes we forget that. So thank you. I'm going to start with a question, and then I know we had a question via chat, but I'll start first with, we often are on LinkedIn, we get an option to buy LinkedIn Premium.
Sure.
What's the advantage? What do you think? Should we or shouldn't we?
There's two ways of looking at it. First and foremost, if you are in a lead gen position, if you're looking to find out more about businesses, if you're working in consulting, independent, then there's definitely value in the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It gives you a lot of insights into companies. It gives you insights into people who have visited your profile to figure out if there's an opportunity to prospect with some of those companies. So yes, if you want to start exploring LinkedIn Premium, if you're running an independent operation or you're looking for business-focused sales, then it's definitely something to explore. They also give you a month free. So if you haven't used it already, you could try it out. If you're looking for a job, if you're job hunting, the idea with LinkedIn is that unless you're a recruiter, if you're on the recruitment side, they obviously have the paid versions and they need it. If you're on the job hunting side, LinkedIn has been structured in such a way that premium is not designed for people looking for work. It's similar to Monster. It's similar to Indeed. You know, these are their competition. They don't want people to have to pay to find a job. They want the employers to be paying to find candidates. So unless you find some other value in the lead generation side, if you're looking for work, it's not really necessary. My girlfriend works as a recruiter. She said the same thing.
Oh, great. Thanks,
I
Corey.
asked for her opinion.
I know.
Just to make sure.
She's awesome. She's awesome. Corey, next question. This comes in from the chat. If I currently have a job, but I'm trying to increase my value to my company by expanding my business development skills, do you have any additional recommendations?
Yeah. So one of the things, and this is again sort of a twofold approach, because as much as if you're looking to increase your value to the company and looking to increase your personal value, one of the things you may want to look to do is coordinate a content strategy with your company. If you're working in the marketing department, great, that's easy. If you're working in a different department, you may want to coordinate with them to find out what kind of content strategy currently exists, figure out how you can add some sort of complementary content to it by adding your own spin. You know, the idea I mentioned before about tailoring the content to your own lessons and your own experiences is extremely valuable, and that can apply both to looking for a job, or if you're looking to build a company's reputation and they're willing to let you use the name and actually some details from projects if that's possible, which can be tough, but still, if there's a way to do that, then you definitely want to try and find a way to highlight that personal side, which gives personality to the company too.
Great. Let me just follow up with another chat question. It says, should our profile about section be written in first person or third person?
First, no question.
Okay, well, that's a nice short answer. Let me go on to the next one then. I loved it. Corey, how do you attach videos, links, images, etc. on LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn has been very aggressively trying to emulate networks like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. It is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by making the content sharing capabilities right up top in that first box. So, if you're on Facebook and you have that box right on top of your profile, do you want to share something? LinkedIn has started doing that as well. So if you're looking to share something to a timeline, you could share it right there with those share buttons. on your profile. So if you actually click on your profile on the left-hand side, you'll see the little me at the bottom left-hand side. If you click there, that's when you'll get into the profile and you'll actually see all of the different areas. Once you click edit profile, all the different areas where you could start to fill in content. So if there are, it'll ask for you videos where you could share, media that can be shared. So you just want to go and edit profile, and then you'll see all those abilities to import content for the network.
Corey, thank you. A quick question. Are keywords important these days? That's always been told that on LinkedIn, we should always have in our profile the keywords. Are they still important?
Yeah, so a lot of these networks have, because these networks are referenced as soft search, a lot of the things that they've been moving towards is intent and natural language based search profiling. So what they do is, instead of looking for keyword packing and keyword density, like saying a marketer, 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 they look for references to things like, in using social media, here are some steps. So it's really more about using the content is the new keyword. So instead of just adding the keywords in, you want to be creating content that references areas that you're trying to highlight.
Great.
So it's more about just speaking than it is about packing keywords in there.
Excellent, Corey. Another question from chat. How do you recommend differentiating the overall company brand and each company thought leader's brand on LinkedIn?
That's a really good question. The company brand itself, so you mentioned first and third, the company brand should still be maintained as the company. That's where you can have a lot more of the static presence, unless you are, it all depends on the company itself. I mean, some companies are hugely personable. I don't know if anybody here has followed Steakums on Twitter, but they are basically operating like an independent person. So it all depends on the brand guidelines. As far as the company influencers and tastemakers and notable people within the company, that's where by identifying your connection to the company and then sharing your experiences from within the company is how you sort of create that bridge, but separate the company from the individual. So it's more about sharing experience. I mentioned experience and lessons. If you want to share something subjective and maybe something political, well, then you may have to put in the disclaimer that this is not related to the company. But if you are talking about the professional experience you've had and what that's led to, and tying it to your experience within the company, you can create that bridge.
Excellent, thank you. Question about internationally. How can you best leverage your company's brand internationally within LinkedIn? Domestically, it's a very strong platform. Internationally, it still seems to be young and growing. What would you do?
And that is a good point. It is young and growing. As far the benefit of young and growing internationally is that people who are using it more from an exploratory standpoint. Outreach with people and connecting with people is something that is still viable. It's not necessarily going to be tossed in the waste bin because they've seen enough of it and they want to, you really have to work at it. You can really connect with people internationally and actually move the conversation offline. At least in what I've found is it's a great place to connect, begin a conversation, and immediately move from LinkedIn offline. Okay. It's been used, and I've found this a lot in Europe, it's been used heavily as first point of contact because I don't have your email, and then send me an email. So InMail I've found is a lot more valuable overseas than it is largely in the US from what I've seen.
Yeah. I just found that out today. So thanks, Corey. That's great. Another question for you. How do we actually reach out to recruiters or potential employers? Is there a way to do it? Or do we have to just sit back and wait for them to reach out?
Well, I mean, look, the benefit of some of the structure, you saw the 20 million jobs that are posted there. That number goes up every day. The first step in applying for a job, let's say, is simply applying through LinkedIn. More and more companies are letting you apply through LinkedIn. It's a one-click process. Obviously, you want to make sure your profile is optimized. So a first step, one-click process is a really useful first step because it sort of mitigates the need to navigate through the hierarchy and connect with someone. On that other front, if you're looking to connect with people, if you're looking to potentially find a job or connect with recruiters, it may be a question of simply looking through. I mean, the benefits of filtering by search are huge because it's filtered by professional designation. So you may just need to start looking, filter by company, filter by job title, and actually reach out and talk and ask if you could set up some time to talk because you're interested in exploring new opportunities. Again, there's a social component here, and people are a lot less guarded when someone reaches out on a little chat window than when it's a cold email, which can sometimes put people off if they've never heard of you before.
Ah,
Although
cool.
everybody's heard of you, so what am I worried about?
No, no. Corey, thanks so much. Corey, how important is the photo on LinkedIn? I've heard both sides. Nobody cares. Other people say it's got to be a professionally done photo. What's
The
your
professionally
recommendation?
done, I think you can get away with not spending $300 some odd on a headshot. I don't think that that's necessarily a must. I wouldn't recommend posting a picture of you and 5 friends on a boat like you might on Instagram. But there's definitely an in between there where you want to sort of hover. So keeping in mind that this is a professional network, but nobody is expecting you to have spent hundreds of dollars or for your company to spend hundreds of dollars on a professional shoot. It's obviously an option, but again, remember, keep it professional.
Okay.
It's a
Because it is a
at the
professional
very
social
least.
network. At least keep it professional. All right. For all of these that want to have a photo with a drink in your hand, maybe not quite all of them. That's me. Anyway, another question from Chad. I have a slide deck of projects that I've worked on in the past, basically a portfolio. Should I attach this to my LinkedIn profile?
Well, you'll be very happy to know that SlideShare is owned by LinkedIn. So yes.
Oh, that's good.
LinkedIn bought SlideShare specifically for that. So you can actually upload SlideShare and integrate it directly into your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And then it'll populate right there. Very easy to see.
Awesome. I know you talked about the value or the importance of endorsements, but sometimes people, it seems like, can go overboard on endorsements.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation?
I would strongly recommend against the model of scratch my back, I scratch yours. The let's trade endorsements is meaningless. You want to be reaching out to people who have something to say. If you've worked with someone, you don't necessarily need to have hundreds and hundreds of endorsements from people or clients. You want to have endorsements from people that you've actually worked with. You want to have endorsements from people that have something of value to say. I mean, ideally, you want an endorsement that talks about you and actually has some time put behind it, as opposed to just great to work with, would work with again. I mean, this isn't Yelp. This is your professional presence, right? So you want to have some sort of personal component to it.
All right, Corey, we're about finished with the Q&A. Do you have a final thought for everybody that's on Zoom with us today?
Yeah, I think the big missed opportunity with the network is that there's a lot more to it than just jobs and professional influencers. So I would just encourage you to explore what's capable of being done there, because there's a lot of additional value that can be pulled out of there that isn't being taken advantage of by everyone. So take some time and take a look.
All right, great. Corey, any announcements that you want to make?
Yeah, actually, so for everybody here, first of all, thank you all. Appreciate you all being here. Thank you for the questions. I encourage you all to keep an eye out. We're actually going to be working on something that expands on some of what we discussed today, just a network for more insights, building your personal brand, learning more about the value of marketing, the value of business development, and a lot more. So keep an eye out for that. And if you want a bit more information, you could check out the Daily Minute Master series on my blog, on the T2 blog, and we'll be looking to expand on that shortly. So keep an eye out.
Excellent, Corey. As usual, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
We're looking forward, ITTT is looking forward to partnering with you as we continue the conversation here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Thank you, everybody that's been with us today. With that, I'm going to return control of this Zoom showcase back to my co-host, Norma Lynn Cutler. Norma Lynn, take it away. Thank you, Corey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Corey. That was really interesting and really helpful. Thank you so much. I didn't realize I've just been clicking random people and not. But anyway, well, we'll be doing this again next month, but it won't be with Corey. You have to contact Corey
Sorry.
individually. uh, and we're very excited about it. As you know, ITTT is trying to bring the latest, actually, something that's available now, but is really going to impact tomorrow. And our next month is really a sexy, in my opinion. I am only speaking for myself. I'm sure my cohorts in crime here probably are cringing. Very interesting topic. So imagine standing in a room that hasn't been built yet. How about sitting in a car while it's being designed, or someplace throughout the design stage, so you can troubleshoot before there is trouble? Walking through buildings and figuring out what's going to work aesthetically as well as structurally, because you're actually in the space. Silver Draft, which is our presentation next month, or our showcase, is creating these kinds of environments so people can see their thoughts in 3D before they become in the built environment. And they're using VR and AR to do this. Excuse me. So you should definitely look out for an invite. Since you're on here, we've got your email, etc. You're done for. You'll be getting invitations to all of our meetings, and you'll know what the topics are because we're going to announce it. It'll be in the invitation, etc. But we think that Silver Draft's offering, allowing you to see your project jump off the paper and into a virtual world before you actually build it, is going to be a very meaningful technology to all of us. I can't think any business that it wouldn't be valuable to. So stay tuned for the dates and the dial-in on your next ITTT adventure. Also, we'd love to hear from you what you loved about this. Only tell us what you loved about it. No, just kidding. But we want to grow from this experience, and we want to know what you really appreciated about this, and if there's any topic that you would like to be included on, so we can make sure you don't miss anything that's relevant to you. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next time.
Oh, bye, everybody.
Everybody,
Thank you, Corey. Bye, everyone.
my pleasure.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.